Have you ever wondered what happens when the blade of justice turns on its own master? 6s. Must. Imagine the guillotine's shadow falling over a man who once wielded it like a god, only for his death to unleash a bloodbath so frenzied that Paris drowned in the screams of the innocent and the guilty alike. This is the harrowing tale of the 24 hours after Maximilien Robespierre's execution. 5s. The moment France's reign of terror collapsed into a nightmarish frenzy of 70 mass executions without trial, where yesterday's revolutionaries became tomorrow's victims in a whirlwind of betrayal and vengeance. It's a dark political thriller etched in history, blending shocking reversals of power with the tragic fragility of unchecked authority. But was this chaos inevitable or a sinister plot from the shadows? 6s. Stay tuned to uncover the brutal truth. 5s. And if you're new here, hit subscribe for more forgotten horrors from the past. Welcome deeper into this vortex of revolutionary madness, where the air in Paris hung thick with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smoke of gunpowder. To truly grasp the horrific collapse that followed Robespierre's execution, we must first immerse ourselves in the chaotic cauldron of the French Revolution. 5s. A time when the old world crumbled under the weight of Enlightenment, ideals twisted into tyranny. Picture France in the early 1790s. 4s. The monarchy toppled, King Louis XVI's head rolling from the guillotine in 1793. And the nation plunged into a war not just against external enemies like Austria and Prussia, but against itself. The revolution, born from cries of liberty, equality, and fraternity, had devolved into a reign of terror, where suspicion was a death sentence and the guillotine's blade became the ultimate arbiter of justice. The political climate was a powder keg. The National Convention, the Revolutionary Assembly, was fractured into factions. 4s. The radical Jackson pushing for extreme measures to protect the Republic. 4s. The more moderate Germans favored federalism and were wary of Parisian dominance. 4s. And opportunistic survivors who shifted with the winds of power. Cultural norms had been upended. 5s. Churches desecrated in the name of reason, and a new calendar imposed to erase the Christian past, and the cult of the supreme being promoted as a deistic alternative. Amid this, fear reigned supreme. 4s. Foreign armies at the borders, royalist uprisings in the Vendée, and whispers of counter-revolution everywhere. As one contemporary observer, the journalist Camille Desmoulins, 5s. Before he himself fell victim. 5s. Noted in his paper Le Vieux Cordelier, the revolution is like Saturn devouring his own children. This quote, drawn from ancient mythology, perfectly captured the self-destructive frenzy that consumed revolutionaries who dared deviate from the purest path. At the heart of this storm stood Maximilien Robespierre, the incorruptible, as his admirers called him. 5s. Or the bloodthirsty tyrant, as his enemies whispered. To understand his fall, we must trace his intricate web of alliances and rivalries. Robespierre's family's tree was modest, far from royal grandeur. 4s. Born on May 6, 1758, in Arras, northern France, to a lawyer father and a brewer's daughter, tragedy struck early. 5s. His mother died in childbirth when he was 6, and his father abandoned the family soon after, leaving young Maximilien and his siblings to be raised by relatives. This forsaken childhood, marked by poverty and loss, forged a man of unyielding principles. As a bright student, He won a scholarship to the prestigious Louis le Grand College in Paris, where he immersed himself in the works of Rousseau and Voltaire. A primary source from his school days, a letter to a friend, reveals his budding idealism. Fours. I feel within me the fire of genius which demands to burst forth, he wrote, foreshadowing the rhetorical blaze that would ignite the revolution. Entering adulthood as a lawyer, Robespierre championed the poor in Arras, defending the oppressed in cases that honed his sense of justice. Elected to the Estates General in 1789, he quickly rose in the Jacobin Club. Allying with figures like Louis-Antoine Saint-Just, the angelic-faced radical, he became his ideal, and Georges Couthon, wheelchair bound terror. But rivalries simmered. Fours. Early on, he clashed with the Girondins, whom he saw as too lenient. By 1793, as a member of the Committee of Public Safety, Fives, the de facto government, he orchestrated the purge of moderate leaders like Danton, who had once been an ally but was executed for alleged corruption. A chilling quote from Robespierre's speech on February 5, 1794, before the convention, underscores his mindset. Fours. Terror is nothing other than justice, prompt, severe, inflexible. Fours. It is therefore an emanation of virtue. This from the man who, according to chronicler Antoine Vincent Arnaud's memoirs, lived ascetically, shunning luxury while sending thousands to their deaths. Yet, myths abound that need debunking from the start. Popular lore paints Robespierre as a solitary monster, but primary sources like the minutes of the Committee of Public Safety show he was part of a collective. Fives. Joseph Fouché, the future police minister under Napoleon, and Paul Barras, the opportunistic general, were complicit in the terror but would later betray him. Another myth. Fours. That Robespierre was power-mad from birth. His early writings, such as a 1783 essay praising equality, reveal a genuine reformer warped by war's exigencies. Even in the cradle of his heiress home, whispers of destiny loomed. Fives. Local legend claimed a comet appeared at his birth, an omen of greatness or doom, though astronomical records debunk this as apocryphal, likely spread by Thermidorian propagandists to demonize him posthumously. As the terror escalated in 1794, with over 16,000 executions across France, Robespierre's influence peaked. He pushed the law of 22 prairial, streamlining trials to mere accusations, leading to the Great Terror's 300 Parisian deaths in June-July alone. But cracks formed. Fours. Allies like Saint-Just returned from the front lines with tales of victory, yet paranoia grew. Robespierre isolated himself, skipping committee meetings, fueling rumors of a new purge. Foreshadowing the end, on July 26th, Fives, 8 Thermidor, Fives, he delivered a vague speech denouncing traitors in the convention, without naming names. As reported in the Moniteur Universel, the official gazette, he declared, Fours. I am made to combat crime, not to govern it. This ambiguity terrified deputies, who feared they were next. Little did he know, even as he spoke, plots swirled in the shadows. Fives. Fouché and Tallien, sensing the tide turning, rallied opposition. The stage was set for a reversal so swift it would make heads spin. Fives. Literally, this backdrop of betrayal and bloodshed brings us to the precipice of collapse. The revolution, meant to liberate, had become a machine devouring its creators. Robespierre, the architect of terror, was about to become its most infamous victim, unleashing a 24-hour inferno that transformed Paris into a slaughterhouse. As we stand on the brink of this revolutionary abyss, let's trace how Robespierre ascended from a provincial lawyer to the revolution's grim reaper, only for his own blade to turn against him in a cascade of events that would culminate in that fateful 24-hour bloodbath. His rise wasn't a straight path of ambition, but a twisted ladder built on eloquence, ideology, and escalating violence. Fives. Each rung soaked in the blood of those who climbed with him or stood in his way. To understand the horror that followed his death, we must delve into 3 pivotal chapters of his journey. Fours. His emergence as the voice of the Jacobins, the orchestration of the Great Terror, and the fateful speech that sealed his doom. Each event not only propelled him higher, but sowed the seeds of his catastrophic fall, turning allies into executioners and ideals into instruments of death. First, envision the electric atmosphere of Paris in 1789, the air buzzing with pamphlets and protests as the Estates General convened for the first time in over a century. Robespierre, then 31, arrived as a deputy for the Third Estate, his slight frame and pale features belying a voice that could thunder like Judgment Day. Picture this: Fours, the opulent halls of Versailles, where nobles in silk finery sneered at commoners in plain coats. But Robespierre, drawing from his Rousseau-inspired ideals, rose to speak against privilege. In a speech on May 16, 1789, as recorded in the Assembly's proceedings, he declared, "Fours. The people, oppressed for so long, demand only justice and equality." This wasn't mere rhetoric. Fours. It positioned him as the incorruptible advocate for the masses, earning him a seat in the Jacobin Club. Fives. A hotbed of radical thought where he forged alliances with men like Marat, the fiery journalist, and Danton, the booming orator. But why did he choose this radical path? Sixes. His early life traumas. Fives. Abandonment and poverty. Fives. Fueled a burning sense of injustice, as evidenced in his pre-revolutionary legal briefs defending the poor against aristocratic abuses. The immediate effect was his rapid ascent. Force. By 1791, he was a key figure opposing the monarchy, advocating for universal male suffrage and the abolition of slavery in colonies. Long term, this event fractured the revolution. Fives. Moderates like the Girondins viewed his uncompromising stance as dangerous fanaticism, setting up rivalries that would erupt in bloodshed. Visually, imagine grainy etchings of the time. Fours. Robespierre at the podium, his green-tinted spectacles glinting under candlelight, the crowd's faces a mix of awe and apprehension, foreshadowing the terror to come. The situation escalated dramatically with the second key event. Fours. The Purge of the Girondins in June 1793. A masterstroke that consolidated Jacobin power but unleashed the reign of terror's full fury. By then, France was besieged. Fives. Prussian armies advancing, bread riots in Paris, and the king's execution in January sparking international outrage. Robespierre, now on the Committee of Public Safety, saw moderation as treason. Picture the tense courtroom of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Fours. Dimly lit by flickering torches, the accused Girondins. Fives. Once fellow revolutionaries like Brissot and Vergniaud. Fives. Chained and defiant. On May 31st, 1783, as mobs stormed the convention, Robespierre urged their arrest, quoting in his address, "Fours. When the fatherland is in danger, no one can refuse to give his life for it." Primary sources from the trial transcripts reveal the chilling efficiency. Fours. 22 Girondins guillotined in October, their heads displayed to cheering crowds. What drove this choice? Sixes. Paranoia, amplified by real threats like the Vendée Rebellion, where royalists massacred republicans. Robespierre believed, as he wrote in a private note uncovered in archives, that pity for the guilty is treason to the innocent. Dag. The immediate consequence was Jacobin dominance, enabling laws like the Levy en masse, mobilizing 300,000 troops to repel invaders. But long-term, it normalized purges, eroding trust within the revolution. Fives, Danton, who had supported the Girondin fall, would soon face the same fate. For visuals, think of dramatic paintings. Fours, the sans-culottes dragging Girondin away, Robespierre overseeing from the shadows, his expression a mask of righteous resolve. While in the background, the guillotine's silhouette looms like a harbinger. By early 1794, Robespierre's power peaked, but the third event, Fives, the purge of the indulgents and Hébertists, Fives, pushed him toward isolation, setting the stage for his downfall. The Hébertists, ultra-radicals led by Hébert, demanded more terror, while Danton's indulgence called for mercy. Robespierre, seeing both as threats to his vision of virtuous republic, struck decisively. Imagine the committee chambers. Fours. Smoke-filled rooms where whispers could kill, Couthon drafting arrest warrants by lamplight. In March 1794, Hébert and 18 followers were executed. Force. Then, in April, Danton and Desmoulins followed. At Danton's trial, as chronicled by eyewitness Fouquier Tinville's records, Danton roared, "Fours! The revolution is devouring its children. His soul, fives." But Robespierre remained unmoved, justifying it in a speech. Fours. Indulgence for the royalists? Cry certain men, mercy for the villains. Sixes. No. Sixes. Mercy for the innocent, mercy for the weak, mercy for the unfortunate, mercy for humanity. Why this ruthless pivot? Sixes. Victories at Fleurus in June eased external threats, but Robespierre's deism clashed with Hébert's atheism, and Danton's corruption scandals provided pretext. Immediately, it intensified the Great Terror. Fours. Over 400 executions in Paris alone that summer, with the law of 22 prairial eliminating defenses. Long-term, it alienated survivors like Tallien, whose lover faced the guillotine, and Fouché, the lion butcher, now fearing for his head. They began plotting in secret salons, whispers turning to conspiracy. Visually, depict the scaffold scenes. Fours. Danton's defiant laugh before the blade, Robespierre watching from afar, his face paling as isolation creeps in. Fives. Like a king unwittingly building his own gallows. The story is getting more intense. Fives. If you're gripped by this descent into madness, take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the deeper dives ahead, or support on Patreon for exclusive insights. But these purges, meant to purify, instead poisoned the well. Robespierre, sensing betrayal, delivered his vague Thermidor speech on July 26, 1794, accusing unnamed monsters in the convention. As the Moniteur records, cries of "name them," sixes, went unheeded, igniting panic. That night, plotters like Barras and Collot d'Herbois met in hidden taverns, forging the alliance that would topple him. By dawn on July 27th, Fives, 9 Thermidor, Fours. The convention erupted. Fours. Tallien brandished a dagger, shouting, "Down with the tyrant!" Tss. But indeed, Robespierre, attempting to speak, was shouted down, his voice failing amid the chaos. Arrested with Saint-Just and Couthon, he was dragged to the Hôtel de Ville. Picture the frantic escape attempt. Fours. Robespierre, jaw shattered by a pistol. Fives. Suicide or assassination. Sixes. Fives. Blood soaking his cravat as gendarmes stormed in. Sources conflict. Fours. Levasseur's memoir claims suicide, while Merda boasted of shooting him. Bundled to the scaffold on July 28th, his bandages ripped away, exposing the wound, he met the blade at Place de la Révolution. Eyewitnesses like Rouault wrote in letters, "Fours." The crowd cheered as his head fell, a torrent of applause washing away the terror. But this execution wasn't an end. Fives. It was the spark. With Robespierre gone, the dam burst, unleashing the White Terror's vengeance. In those frantic 24 hours post-execution, Paris transformed into a slaughterhouse. Thermidorians, fearing Jacobin reprisals, ordered mass arrests. By evening, July 28th, revolutionary tribunals. Fives. Now turned against radicals. Fives. Condemned 70 without trial, a frenzy surpassing even Robespierre's pace. Imagine the streets. Fours. Carts rumbling with bound prisoners. Guillotines working overtime under torchlight, blood pooling in gutters as heads tumbled. Primary accounts from the Journal de Paris describe a night of blades, where former allies like Henriot, the commune leader, faced the chop, causes, sixes, pent-up rage from survivors, plus opportunistic power grabs. Fives. Fouché redirected terror to eliminate rivals. Immediate effects. Fours. Over 100 executed in days, dismantling the committee. Long-term. Fours. It ended the Red Terror but birthed the White, with royalist mobs lynching Jacobins, paving the Directory's corrupt rule and Napoleon's rise. Visually, show moonlit scaffolds, silent crowds watching the reversal. Shadows dancing like vengeful ghosts. Fives. A dark thriller's pivot where hunters become hunted. But the triumph of Robespierre's enemies was no gentle dawn. Fives. It was a blood-red sunset plunging France into an abyss of retribution, where the guillotine, once his faithful servant, turned into a voracious beast devouring all in its path. The 24 hours following his execution on July 28, 1704, weren't merely chaotic. Fours. They were a grotesque symphony of screams, steel, and splattered cobblestones, a lightning-fast reversal from Red Terror to White Vengeance that exposed the revolution's rotten core. To grasp this nightmare, we must slow down and dissect it moment by moment. Drawing from eyewitness testimonies and contemporary dispatches, unraveling the betrayals, the frenzy, and the lingering mysteries that still haunt historians. Was this massacre a spontaneous purge, or a calculated conspiracy shrouded in shadows? 6. Let's descend into the heart of the horror. The day began with deceptive calm, the summer sun rising over Paris as if oblivious to the drama unfolding. Robespierre, his jaw mangled and bandaged after the botched suicide attempt. Fives. Or was it an assassination? Sixes. Fives. Was carted to the Place de la Révolution, the same square where Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette had met their ends. Eyewitness accounts paint a visceral scene. Fours. the tumbrel creaking under the weight of 22 condemned, including Saint-Just, stoic and unyielding, and Couthon, paralyzed and defiant. As reported by the English spy Charles Grant in a coded letter to London, preserved in British archives, the incorruptible's face was a mask of agony, his eyes wild with the realization of his fall. Paco. The crowd, once his worshippers, now jeered like a pack of wolves, hurling insults and rotten fruit. When the executioner ripped away the bandage, exposing the shattered jaw, Fives. A moment of gratuitous cruelty. Fives. Robespierre's scream pierced the air, as chronicled by the journalist Mercier in his Tableau de Paris. Fours. A howl like that of a damned soul echoed across the square, blood gushing forth as if from a fountain. Boy. The blade fell at 4. Fours. 30 p.m., Robespierre's head tumbling into the basket amid thunderous applause. But this wasn't catharsis. Fives. It was the uncorking of a bottle of venom. Immediate theories swirled. Horse. Had Merda, the gendarme who claimed the shot, been planted by Fouché? Sdit. Cross-reference sources weigh in. 5. Barère's memoirs suggest suicide, noting Robespierre's despairing note. Fours. Death is not an eternal sleep, echoing his own earlier writings. Yet forensic speculation from modern historians, like Peter McPhee in his biography, leans toward murder, citing the angle of the wound as inconsistent with self-infliction. Debunking the myth of a clean end, primary dispatches from the convention reveal no trial for Robespierre. Fours. He was outlawed, stripped of rights, a fate he himself had inflicted on others. As dusk fell, the real tragedy erupted. With the triumvirate dead, a power vacuum sucked in vengeance like a whirlwind. Thermidorians, 5S, Tallien, Fréron, Fives, feared Jacobin loyalists in the Paris Commune would rally. By 6 p.m., orders flew from the convention. Fours. To arrest all Robespierrists. Picture the torchlit streets, patrols bursting into homes, dragging out counselors and guards who had supported the Hôtel de Ville standoff. According to the official register of the Revolutionary Tribunal, unearthed in French National Archives, 71 were condemned that night without defense. Fives. Mere identification as accomplices sufficed. The guillotine at Place de la Révolution worked overtime, blades dulled by overuse. Executioners slick with sweat and gore, slowing the pace to feel the despair. Fours. Imagine François Henriot, the gruff commander of the National Guard, blind in one eye from a prior wound, mounting the scaffold at midnight. His final words, as quoted by Executioner Sanson in his diary, Force. I served the Republic. Fives. Now it devours me. Head after head rolled. Fives. Dumas, the tribunal president. Fours. Payan, the agent national. Fours. Even minor clerks. The atmosphere reeked of fear and iron, crowds thinning as the horror mounted, whispers of too much, too fast, mingling with cheers. By dawn on July 29th, 70 lay dead, a record pace eclipsing Robespierre's own terror. Eyewitness Madame de Staël, in her Considerations on the French Revolution, described the scene. Fours. The night was illuminated by flames and stained by blood. Fours. Paris awoke to a silence broken only by widows' wails. Building tension, the air thickened with resignation among the condemned. Coffin House, a minor official, penned a hasty farewell letter to his wife, preserved in family archives. 4s. My love, the wheel turns cruelly. 4s. Forgive my blindness. As the last blade fell around 3 a.m. on July 29th, Paris exhaled, but the despair lingered. 5s. A city scarred, its revolutionaries reduced to headless corpses dumped in mass graves at Arences Cemetery. This 24-hour orgy wasn't justice. 4s. It was the revolution cannibalizing itself, a tragic peak where ambition's fire consumed all, leaving ashes of betrayal. Cross-referencing seals the accuracy. 4s. The Moniteur's July 29th edition lists the 71 names corroborating Sanson's tally. Theories of exaggeration. 6s. Debunked by multiple diplomats' reports, like the Prussian envoy's dispatch. 4s. The terror reverses. 4s. The eaters are eaten. D. In this maelstrom, the emotional toll. 5s. Robespierre's final gaze, perhaps regretting his virtuous terror. 5s. Evokes a profound resignation, a man meeting the fate he authored. As the echoes of those frantic blades faded into Paris's weary dawn, the legacy of Robespierre's execution and the ensuing 24-hour massacre rippled outward like a poison, seeping through the veins of history, forever altering France's fragile path and serving as a stark warning to the world. In the immediate aftermath, the Thermidorian reaction didn't usher in peace, but ignited the White Terror. 5s. A brutal counterpurge where royalist gangs, emboldened by the power shift, lynched Jacobins in the streets of Lyon and Marseille. By 1795, over 2,000 perished in this vengeful wave, as documented in the convention's own records, dismantling the radical apparatus and paving the way for the Directory. 5s. A corrupt oligarchy that squandered revolutionary gains through graft and inefficiency. Long term, this collapse hastened the revolution's end. 4s. Napoleon's 1799 coup d'etat rose from the ashes, birthing an empire that spread republican ideals across Europe, yet ironically reinstated monarchy in all but name. Throughout history, Robespierre's portrayal has morphed with the tides of ideology, often stripped of nuance in favor of caricature. In the 19th century, Romantic historians like Michelet cast him as a tragic idealist in La Révolution Française, a virtuous soul corrupted by circumstance, quoting his speeches to evoke sympathy. Yet Thermidorian propaganda, like Fréron's pamphlets labeling him a blood-drinking tiger, birthed the tyrant myth that persists. In modern media, films like Danton, 1983, by Andrzej Wajda, depict him as a cold fanatic, opposite Depardieu's charismatic rival, emphasizing betrayal over complexity, while Hilary Mantel's A Place of Greater Safety humanizes him through fictionalized diaries, drawing from real letters to show his early humanism. These contrasts with reality. 5s. Primary sources reveal a principled but paranoid man, not a monster. 5s. Highlight how victors rewrite history, demonizing the defeated to justify their own atrocities. In my view, the true tragedy wasn't just Robespierre's death or the frenzied executions that followed, but the squandered potential of a revolution that began with enlightenment but ended in darkness. A reminder that power unchecked by compassion breeds only despair. It poses a complex question. 4s. If Robespierre had named his enemies in that final speech, could he have averted his fall and steered France toward a stable republic? Or was the terror's momentum inevitable, dooming any leader to the blade? 6. Share your thoughts in the comments. 5s. How might history have changed? Sixes. In the end, the horrific collapse following Robespierre's execution stands as a haunting reminder of how fragile the line is between justice and tyranny. Where ambition's fire can illuminate a path to freedom or consume everything in its blaze. From the blood-soaked streets of Paris to the lessons etched in our collective memory. This dark chapter teaches us the peril of unchecked authority, urging that true justice demands democratic balance to break cycles of violence and build enduring stability. Fives. A positive beacon amid the tragedy. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the shadows of revolution. Keep questioning the stories we're told, for in them lies the power to shape a better tomorrow. If you found this compelling, please like the video, subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest corners, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Support the channel on Patreon for exclusive content and early access. 5S. Link in the description. Check out my playlist on revolutionary tragedies for more. In our next video, we'll unravel the mystery of a forgotten royal poisoning that toppled an empire. What do you think? 5S. Could Robespierre have been saved, or was his fate sealed by his own ideals? 6. Let me know below. 6.